Emily Carter did not plan to feel afraid that night. She told herself she was just tired. A long flight from Boston to Seattle, a broken engagement still heavy on her heart. A marketing conference she barely cared about. That was all. But the moment she stepped into the Grand Harbor Hotel, something felt different. The lobby glowed with soft, golden lights. A piano played somewhere near the bar. People laughed quietly, rolling suitcases across polished floors. Everything looked peaceful. Normal. Emily adjusted the strap of her purse and walked to the front desk. She kept her smile polite, her voice steady as she gave her name. The receptionist handed her a key card and explained that her room was on the 8th floor. She thanked her and turned toward the elevators. That was when she noticed them. 3 men, they were not standing together. That was what made it strange. One stood near the fireplace, tall, dark coat, focused on his phone. Another leaned against the far wall, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the lobby in a quiet way. The third sat by the large front window, looking out at the rain as if he were waiting for something. Emily would not have thought twice about them. Except when she started walking toward the elevators, the tall man by the fireplace lifted his head. The one near the wall straightened slightly. The man by the window stood up. Not suddenly, not in a rush, just moved. Her stomach tightened. She kept walking, telling herself she was being dramatic. Hotels were full of guests coming and going. It meant nothing. She pressed the elevator button and stared at the numbers above the doors. Her reflection in the shiny metal looked pale. She blamed the travel. The elevator opened with a soft ding. She stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, a hand slid between them. The tall man from the fireplace entered. "Evening," he said calmly. His voice was low and smooth, not unfriendly, not threatening. "Evening," she replied, keeping her tone even. They stood side by side, not too close, not too far. The elevator began to rise. She could feel his presence, steady and quiet. He wasn't staring at her, but she sensed that he noticed her. "Here for the conference?" he asked after a moment. "Yes," she said. "Same," he replied with a small smile. The ride felt longer than it was. When the doors opened on the 5th floor, he stepped out. Relief washed over her. She continued up to the 8th floor alone. The hallway was quiet. Thick carpet softened. Her steps, the lights were dim but warm. She walked toward her room, reading the numbers on each door. Halfway down the hall, she slowed. The second Mantha, one who had leaned against the lobby walls, stood near the ice machine. He looked up when he heard her steps. For a second, their eyes met. He looked surprised. Almost caught off guard. "Sorry," he said quickly. "Thought this was my floor." He moved past her and headed toward the stairs. Her heart beat faster now. "Coincidence," she repeated in her mind. "Just coincidence." She reached her room, slid the key card in, and pushed the door open. Once inside, she locked it quickly. The room was clean and simple. Large bed, desk by the window. A view of city lights, and rain sliding down the glass. She set her suitcase down and exhaled slowly. "You're tired," she whispered to herself. She walked to the window and stared out at the dark sky. Seattle rain fell in soft lines, blurring the streets below. She used to love rain. Daniel used to say it made the world feel honest. Her chest tightened at the thought of him. 3 months ago, they were planning a wedding. 3 months ago, she believed in forever. Then, one quiet evening, he told her. He wasn't sure. Not angry, not cruel, just unsure. She had packed her things the next morning. Now she was here, alone, trying to rebuild her confidence one day at a time. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the desk. She jumped. An unknown number. She stared at the screen for a moment before opening the message. "You don't have to be afraid. Sometimes strangers are sent for a reason." Her blood ran cold. She read it again. Afraid? Who knew she was afraid? Her hands began to shake. She checked the time. 9:17 p.m. She hadn't given her number too. Anyone at the hotel? A chill moved down her spine. Slowly, carefully, she walked toward the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway looked empty. Then a door across from hers opened quietly. The third man, the one from the window in the lobby, stepped out. He stood still for a moment, adjusting his jacket. Then he turned his head slightly, not directly at her, but close enough that her breath caught. It felt like he knew. She stepped back from the door. Her heart pounded in her ears. She locked the deadbolt again, even though it was already locked. Her thoughts raced. Were they together? Were they watching her? Why? She grabbed her phone and considered calling the front desk. But what would she say? 3 men exist in the same hotel. That sounded foolish. Another message buzzed onto her screen. This time, her heart almost stopped. Ress, you're safe. She swallowed hard. Safe from what? She quickly typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Minutes passed. Silence. She paced the room, trying to think clearly. Maybe someone from the conference had her number. Maybe. It was a wrong message. But how did they know she felt afraid? She sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her palms together, trying to calm herself. Think, Emily, the tall man in the elevator had been polite. The one in the hallway had seemed embarrassed. The third had only glanced down the corridor. None of them had acted aggressive. But together, it felt like a pattern. She walked back to the door and listened. Footsteps moved faintly in the distance. A soft click of another door. Then quiet. She checked her phone again. No new messages. She considered texting Daniel. The thought made her pause. He was no longer the person she called when she felt unsafe. That was the hardest part of heartbreak. Not just losing love, but losing your safe place. She shook her head and focused. She locked her windows, even though they didn't open far. She double-checked the bathroom empty. Everything looked normal still. Sleep felt impossible. She turned on the television for background noise. Soft voices filled the room. It helped a little. Her phone buzzed once more. She froze. But this time it was just an email from the conference. She let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Midnight came. She lay in bed, staring. At the ceiling, her mind replayed every moment in the lobby. The way they moved, the way they watched, the message. You're safe. It didn't feel threatening. Felt careful, protective. That confused her more than anything. If someone wanted to harm her, they wouldn't text reassurance. Unless it was a trick, her heart wouldn't slow down. Around 1 a.m., she heard footsteps outside again. Slow, measured. They paused near her door. Her entire body went still. She held her breath, silence. Then the footsteps continued down the hall. She sat up in bed. That was it. In the morning, she would speak to hotel security. No more guessing, no more imagining. She refused to let fear control her. Still, as she finally closed her eyes near dawn, one thought stayed with her. 3 strangers had followed her from the lobby to the elevator to her floor. One had texted her, one stood across the hall. And somehow, deep down, she sensed this wasn't random. It wasn't danger exactly. It was something else. Something waiting. And as sleep slowly pulled her under, one question echoed in her mind. If they weren't there to hurt her, then why were they there at all? Emily did not truly sleep. She drifted in and out of shallow dreams, waking at every sound in the hallway. When her alarm rang at 7, she was already staring at the ceiling, fully awake. Morning light slipped through the curtains. The city looked calm, almost innocent, as if the night had imagined itself. She sat up slowly. Her phone lay on the nightstand. No new messages. For a moment, she wondered if she had overreacted. Maybe the texts were a mistake. Maybe the men were simply guests. Then there was a knock on her door. Not loud, not rushed. 3 steady taps. Her heart jumped into her throat. She stood, walked quietly to the door, and looked through the peephole. The tall man from the elevator stood outside, alone. He wasn't smiling. He didn't look threatening. He looked serious. "Miss Carter," he called gently. "I'd like to explain. I'd like to explain." Explain. Her mind raced. She kept the chain on and opened the door just a few inches. Explain what? His eyes were calm last night. Before she could respond, the second man stepped into view at the far end of the hall. He kept his distance, hands visible. The third man appeared near the stairwell. They were giving her space, but they were clearly together. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. "Why were you following me?" Michael inhaled slowly. "We weren't following you in the way you think. That's not an answer." "You're right," he said quietly. "You deserve a clear one." She watched his face carefully. No smirk, no anger, just patience. "We were hired to make sure you arrived safely and stayed safe during this trip." Her stomach tightened. Hired by who? A familiar voice answered from behind them. "Me." The world seemed to tilt. Daniel. He stepped into view from the elevator area. He looked different, his hair slightly longer, his face more tired. But it was him. Her breath caught. "What are you doing here?" He stopped a few steps away. Leaving space between them, "I needed to see you." She felt a rush of emotions at once: shock, anger, relief, confusion. "You sent them." Daniel nodded once. "I asked them to keep an eye on things." Her voice sharpened. "Not normal, Daniel." "I know," he said quickly. "I know how it looks." "Then explain." He ran a hand through his hair, nervous in a way she hadn't seen before. "When you left Boston, you didn't tell anyone where you were staying. I found out about the conference from your colleague. I also learned there were past security concerns connected to large events at this hotel." Emily frowned. "That was handled months ago." "I didn't want to take any chances," he said. "I couldn't. The hallway felt too small for the weight of the moment." "You broke up with me," she said quietly. "You don't get to protect me." His expression softened. "I never stopped caring about you." "That's not the same as staying." The words hung between them. Michael cleared his throat gently. "We never entered your room. We never accessed your phone directly. The number was provided to us strictly for emergency contact. The messages were meant to reassure you, not alarm. You." Emily looked at him sharply. "You thought anonymous messages would reassure me." He seemed almost embarrassed. In hindsight, that was a mistake. She folded her arms, trying to steady herself. "You should have told me." Daniel nodded. "You're right." Silence settled again. The other 2 men stepped farther down the hall, giving them privacy without leaving entirely. Emily's chest felt tight. Seeing Daniel again reopened feelings she had worked hard to bury. "You said you weren't sure about us," she said. "You walked away." He swallowed. "'Cause I was scared?" "Of what?" "Of failing." "You," he answered without hesitation. "Of not being enough. You were ready for forever. I wasn't sure I deserved it." Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't planned to shed. "So you decided for both of us." "I thought I was being honest," he said. "I didn't realize I was being cowardly." The word hit her, cowardly. Daniel took a slow step forward, but kept distance. "The night you left, the apartment felt empty in a way I can't explain. I told myself it was better this way. That you would find someone more certain. And did you?" she asked softly. "Find peace." "No," he said. "I found regret." She searched his face. There was no pride there. No ego, just sincerity. "I watched you pull away," he continued. "I saw you trying to be strong. And I realized I let fear make the biggest decision of my life." Anger began to mix with something softer. "You don't get to fix this with security guards," she said. "I'm not trying to fix it with them," he replied. "I just needed to know you were safe before I came to talk to you. The truth in his voice made it harder to stay distant. She remembered the night he proposed, the way his hands shook, the way he said her name like it mattered. "You hurt me," she whispered. "I know. You made me feel like I wasn't enough." His face tightened. "That was never true. You were always more than enough. I was the one who felt small." The honesty disarmed her. The hotel hallway no longer felt threatening. It felt exposed, like a stage where all their unfinished words had finally been spoken. "Why now?" she asked. "Why not weeks ago?" "'Cause it took losing you to understand that love isn't about certainty," he said. "It's about choosing someone, even when you're scared." Her heart beat slower now, not from fear but from memory. "You can't just walk back in," she said. "Trust doesn't rebuild overnight." "I don't expect it to," he replied. "I just want the chance to earn it." Behind him, the three men began to move quietly toward the elevator, sensing. The conversation had shifted. Emily noticed. "They're leaving," she asked. Daniel glanced back. "Their job is done." Michael gave her a respectful nod before stepping inside the elevator with the others. The doors closed softly. Now it was just the two of them. No strangers, no protection, only history. The morning light through the hallway window cast soft shadows on the carpet. "I came here to escape," she admitted. "To breathe without thinking about us." "And did it help?" he asked gently. She thought for a moment. "It helped me realize I was stronger than I thought." He nodded slowly. "You always were." She studied him carefully. She wasn't looking for promises. She wasn't looking for grand words. She was looking for growth. "You can't love me halfway," she said firmly. "If you come back fully." "I will," he said without hesitation. "And if you get scared again, then I talk to you," he answered. "I don't run." The simplicity of that response meant more than dramatic speeches. Her heart still carried bruises, but it also carried love she had never truly erased. She stepped out into the hallway fully, closing her room door behind her. "Okay?" They stood facing each other. Not touching, not rushing, just standing. "I don't forgive everything yet," she said honestly. "I don't expect you to," he replied. "But I'm willing to talk." His eyes softened. "That's all I'm asking." The elevator down the hall chimed. Life outside continued. Guests walked past without knowing the quiet storm that had just settled. Emily took a deep breath. Last night she thought three strangers were following her for reasons she feared. This morning she realized they were only shadows around a truth she had been avoiding. Daniel had not stopped loving her. He had only been afraid. And she had mistaken silence for absence. They walked slowly toward the elevator together, not as a couple fully restored. Not as strangers either. Something in between. The doors opened. They stepped inside. As the elevator descended, Emily felt something shift inside her. Not blind trust, not reckless hope, just possibility. And for the first time in months, that was enough.